What is the most insane excuse you use to avoid getting fired at work? I worked for a high-tech company when high-tech was just starting to make an impact on the world. This was before the internet, even before everyone had PCs. We had one PC for the entire department and it was a thrill to use it. I say this just to give an impression of how things have changed since then. Our company made high-speed modems, but the fastest anyone could do in those days was 9,600 bits per second, and you paid $10,000 a piece for each modem and you needed at least two of them, one for each end. We had invented a mechanism that would double that rate to 19,200 bits per second, which was like lightning at the time. The benefits were immediately apparent and every major company wanted them. Damn the cost. Unfortunately, the techniques we were using were in their infancy and had lots of bugs. Even though we were selling them like ice cream on a hot day, they didn't work as advertised. A huge oil company bought a massive amount of products. They planned to link all of their gas stations across the US to their central site and have the managers report daily sales to the home office. This previously had been done by mail or phone and was slow and inefficient. With a modem system, they could know what their revenues were to the penny overnight, or even several times during the day. They did some cursory testing on the devices and rolled them out. But they didn't work. Our engineers worked day and night to fix the issues, but it turned out to be intractable. There were grave concerns that we might never solve the problem. Our salesman for the company, Jake, was a brave and confident expert with years of experience, but he was becoming increasingly discouraged. The customer was agitated and angry and threatened to return the product. This would have been a huge setback, possibly a death blow to the company. They were by far our biggest customer and by far the biggest sale we had ever achieved. I was the manager of the business unit, newly promoted to the role at the age of 26. I thought I was something special, and to be honest if not modest, I was a worldwide expert on these technologies and frequently flown around the world to solve problems. But what I didn't know was that behind the scenes the senior managers of this customer were now demanding a meeting with our company. Our management knew it was the end if we did not have a solution, and we had no solution. The salesman Jake set up a meeting with the senior vice president of this oil company, a man who probably had the power to overthrow third world countries or have people killed. Suddenly, the president of our company had pressing business in Europe. So did every other executive down the line until they looked at me. I was to be the sacrificial lamb they would send to the slaughter. I was told to go make nice with the customer to buy more time. I was unaware of the political issues behind the scene. Jake knew I failed. I would be unceremoniously fired as a token of good faith. I had no clue about these stakes. Thinking this was going to be yet another triumphant visit, and with a swelled head, I went out, bought a new suit and briefcase, and flew from Boston to the West Coast. I didn't even have anything to put in the briefcase except a pad and pencil since I wasn't given any progress report, possible solutions, or any token that might mollify them. Management was so certain of disaster that they thought it best I go completely in the dark. I was picked up by Jake and his new Jaguar, along with our field engineer, both of whom knew the gravity of our situation and how dire things were. I was cheerful and humming in the car as I took in the sights. I was surprised by their gloomy silence until we got to the customer's campus. I had never seen anything like it before. Oil money can buy anything, and this building was modern and massive. The lobby was an art museum with original paintings by the masters. We didn't even have to wait. As soon as we announced ourselves we were shown to a conference room. This is when I got scared. The room was huge with an impossibly long conference table surrounded by the most expensive leather chairs money could buy. There were tuxedoed waiters with white gloves bringing crystal glasses for the pitchers of water. There was a stenographer with a real steno machine to take the minutes. The room was already filled with executives and lawyers speaking to each other in low voices and grim expressions. I knew then that I was doomed. Finally, the door opened and the senior vice president came in. A hush fell over the room. Here was a man that everyone in that room feared and respected. You could feel the power and electricity coming from him as he strode in. He sat directly opposite me. I blinked stupidly as the sweat rolled down my sides. Next to me, Jake was gripping his Mont Blanc pen like a drowning sailor clutching at a piece of driftwood. On my right, the SC sat stoically. No matter what happened, he would be safe unless the company went broke because of this debacle. The vice president opened the meeting as if it were a legal proceeding, reading a summary of the problem and all the actions taken to date, emphasizing our failure to solve it. As he got into it, he became angrier and angrier. He started pounding the table and he got red as he spoke of how much time and money had been wasted and spoke of fraud, malfeasance and misrepresentation. All of this was directed at me. He was further insulted that our company had the nerve to send me, of all people, not even a VP. Finally, he pointed at me and said in a harsh voice, "If you can't fix this problem today, right now, around town your name isn't going to be worth squat." And then he sat back in his chair. I can still hear the leather creaking. There wasn't another sound in the room. Every eye was on me now, and what I would say next. I had nothing. I didn't even have anything in my briefcase to fumble with for the time. And then, without even thinking, I said, "Around town." It was well known that when they got home at night their fat and psychopathic wives would thrash them within inches of their lives. I couldn't believe my ears. I couldn't believe I had just said that. To my left, Jake looked at me in horror and tried to pull himself away from me in his chair. The senior executive had his mouth open. So did all the important lawyers in their suits and suspenders. Even the stenographer looked up from her machine at me. I was well and truly dead. The vice president wound up screaming at me and I flinched. Then he stopped. "Wait a minute," he said, "I know that line." "Yes," I whispered, "it's from Pink Floyd's The Wall album." He said, "I knew that." "You like Pink Floyd?" "Yes," I said, "it's my favorite group." "Mine too," he said, suddenly smiling and getting up. "I saw the Wall concert in LA in 1980. It was fantastic. I even caught one of Gilmore's guitar picks. I have it framed in my office with the ticket stubs. Come on, I'll show you." And he got up and walked over to the door. I numbly followed. My ears were ringing and I knew I stunk of sweat and fear. The people in the room were dumbstruck. Everyone had their mouths open or were looking at us in absolute amazement. No one said a word. As we left the room, he smiled and said to the room, "Oh, we'll give them a few more weeks," and he waved them off and we went down the hall. The rest of the visit passed in a blur. Jake was pounding the wheel and laughing out loud on the trip back to the airport. "We gotta get you a great big steak," he said. "You know, you can only get away with that once in your career." When I got back to the office, I was the hero of the hour. The salesman had called and relayed the story to everyone he could reach, and I was called into a meeting to recount the adventure. Everyone was laughing and slapping me on the back. It felt good to be the hero for once. Tomorrow I would once again be the GOAT, I was sure. Over the next few weeks, we had a dramatic breakthrough in engineering and the problem was solved, the situation resolved, and the customer was saved. They went on to buy many thousands more modems.